Welcome back to your channel Booksica. In today's video, we will be sharing a summary of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. About the book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is about Robert Kiyosaki and his two dads, his real father, Poor Dad, and the father of his best friend, Rich Dad, and the ways in which both men shaped his thoughts about money and investing. The book explodes the myth that you do not need to earn a high income to become rich. It explains several methods of managing your personal finance effectively and teaches the difference between working for money and having your money work for you. About the author. Robert Kiyosaki is an entrepreneur, investor, and author of the best-selling book on personal finance, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He teaches millions of people around the world about financial literacy and how to accomplish financial independence. He believes that each of us has the power to make changes in our lives, take control of our financial future, and live the rich life we deserve. So, let's begin with Booksica. Chapter 1. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. According to the author, the traditional schooling system lacks proper education in the financial field. Normally, schools focus on building professional skills and not financial skills. This shows how smart students, who have become smart professionals in their respective fields, struggle when it comes to handling their finances. The author, whom he referred to as Rich Dad, is his childhood friend, Mike's dad. He taught him lessons about money and finances throughout his life. He noticed that both of his dads, his father and Mike's father, worked hard, but when it came to money matters, his dad never used his brains for financial advantages. Therefore, he is referred to as the poor dad. The poor dad preached that if the author studied hard in his school days, it would help him find a good company to work in and a stable job. Whereas the rich dad said that studying hard would help the author to find the right company to buy. The poor dad believed that the largest investment and the greatest asset is their house, whereas the rich dad believed it to be a liability. The poor dad had a habit of paying bills first, and the rich dad preferred to pay the bills as delayed as possible. The poor dad had taught the author to write great resumes which would help him finding and cracking good job interviews. On the other hand, the rich dad taught him to journal great financial plans so that he could create jobs. There was a time when the rich dad was broke due to a major financial setback, but he continued to refer to himself as a rich man. He stated that there is a difference between being poor and being broke. He said, "Broke is temporary, poor is eternal." The author was motivated by his rich dad to understand how money works and how to make it work for him. Chapter 2. The rich don't work for money. The rich dad had a completely unique approach to teaching. He said that if a person works for him, it's his responsibility to educate and teach that person. He even claimed that a person learns faster if she works along with learning. Practical experience is the key. Just to sit and listen to lectures is a sheer waste of time, and that's what happens in school. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. The author's rich dad explained that the rich really did make money. They did not work for it. He believed that the best reason to get a job was to learn something, and not for the monthly salary. The author started a business when he was only 9 years old. He had a library and rented comic books to the neighborhood kids. The author said that the best part was that our business generated money for us, even when we weren't physically there. Our money worked for us. The daily chorus, to get up, go to work, pay bills and live, was a vicious cycle according to the rich dad. Being offered more money as a job promotion over time results in an increase in expenditure and no real gain in the value for money. The life of the person wouldn't change. He referred to it as a rat race. As people grow, their expenses increase, and so does their demand for expensive things. They have a constant thought to cope up with society and their standard of living. The fear pushes them, but the desire beckons on them, enticing them towards unsafe territories, and that's the trap. The author explains that the poor and the middle class work for money, fear, and greed because they were not taught to take risks, and rather to stay in their comfort zone and work for a stable salary job. He says that opportunities come and go in life, and the rich recognize them and grab them, but the poor ignore the opportunities, because they are too busy seeking money and security. These lessons inspired the two boys, Robert and Mike, to find new ways to make money. Chapter 3. Why learn financial literacy? The author reveals the secrets of financial literacy when it comes to getting rich and emphasizes the fact that the rich really do get richer over time. The author raises concern about the fact that people are concerned with getting as much money as they can but fail to realize that their greatest wealth is their education. He continues to emphasize on the importance of financial literacy because without it, even if one is rich, he can end up broke. He cited some examples of some of the professional athletes and celebrities who made poor financial decisions and were in financial distress. Mantra to become rich: you must know the difference between an asset and a liability and always focus towards buying assets. Rich people acquire assets, whereas the poor and the middle class people are busy acquiring liabilities that they think are assets. The key feature about an asset that distinguishes it from a liability is that assets result in making money for us, helping us become rich. Students leave school without acquiring financial skills, and that's the reason why they are concerned with professional success and not with financial stability. They fail to understand that spending the money you have is not the way of life, and this is caused by lack of financial literacy. Why do the rich keep getting richer? The assets of the rich people generate income which is high enough to cover their expenses. The remaining balance income is further reinvested in buying more assets. This way, their assets continue to grow, and so does their income. On the other hand, the poor and the middle class people remain poor because they do the opposite and pile up their liabilities. One has to understand that it is not how much one can earn, but how much one can keep and save that truly makes him rich. The real evil here is lack of financial education. The reason the middle class have to play it safe is because they couldn't get their hands on financial literacy at a young age, and now they have a lot of liabilities hovering over their head. Their only source of income is their monthly salary checks. Their livelihood is completely dependent on their employer. A simple observation: the rich buy assets, the poor have expenses. The middle class buy liabilities that they think are assets. Chapter 4. Mind your own business. The author explains beautifully that most people confuse their profession with their business. They spend their entire lives working in somebody else's business and making other people rich. Instead, they should mind their own business if they want to become financially free. They should figure out ways to become their own boss and build their own business. Things to know about the poor and the middle class. These people work for everyone but themselves. Primarily they work for the owners of the company, then for the government of the country by paying taxes, and lastly for the bank that has the mortgage on their homes. When the factor of downsizing came into play, millions of workers who considered their houses as their assets realized that this asset became their biggest liability at that point. What they thought was an asset couldn't help them in times of financial crisis. Things to know about the rich. The rich always focus on their asset column when everybody else focuses on their income statement. The rich have this habit of minding their own business. The author says to keep your day job, but start buying assets like real estate and stocks. Do not buy liabilities or personal expenditures that add no real value to your net worth. As assets increase, the income will also increase. This would result in an urge to buy luxuries. The rich buy assets last. buying luxury on credit is the most fatal. The debt of the luxury product eventually becomes a financial burden. The aim should be to build income-generating assets that can buy luxuries. Chapter 5. The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. Being an expert in arts and history, the rich dad explained to Mike and the author that originally there were no taxes in England and America. The original plan was to tax the people who could afford to lose a part of their income, but with time the government needed money so badly that these taxes were trickled down to the middle and lower classes also. The knowledge of the legal corporate structure is what really gives the rich a huge advantage over the poor. They use their knowledge to build corporations, which are essentially a legal document that creates a legal body without a soul. Once again, the rich use this to protect their wealth, as the income tax rate for a corporation is lower than the income tax rate for an individual. The rich cannot be bullied because they are the bullies. Every time in history people tried to punish the rich by making them pay more taxes, they fought back. They have the power, money, motivation, and intent to do whatever it takes to reduce their tax burden. They take all sorts of actions, from hiring smart accountants to persuading or bribing politicians to pass laws which will benefit them. The rich don't just sit around and do whatever the government or the people are telling them to do. They use their wealth to bring about the change. The same, however, cannot be said about the poor and the middle class. Financial IQ involves 4 major points to be satisfied. The main difference between a corporation and an employee is that the corporation has the ability to earn, spend everything it can, and then be taxed on whatever is left, whereas an employee is taxed on whatever he earns and then tries to live off on whatever's left. Business owners with corporations earn, spend, pay taxes. Employees who work for corporations earn, pay taxes, spend. One of the biggest secrets that keeps the rich ahead is that they own their own corporation wrapped around their own assets. Chapter 6. The Rich Invent Money. According to Kiyosaki, everyone is born with talent, but that talent is suppressed because of self-doubt and fear. Kiyosaki explains that smart, bold, and adventurous people prosper. The people who struggle with their finances even when they have a lot of money are because they fail to tap into opportunities and are afraid to take risks. Most of these people just sit around and wait for the opportunity to come to them. Kiyosaki stresses on the point that people make luck. They don't sit around and wait for it